I'm joined on the stage by different members of my staff, in addition to the special agent in charge of the Regional Florida Department of Law Enforcement Office, Special Agent in Charge, Danny Banks. We want to emphasize as we move forward this morning that after the events of yesterday, I do believe that our deputies did everything that they could to try and resolve this situation in a peaceful manner. Sadly, that was not the outcome for this young man. Since we, as an agency, always try to be as transparent with our community as we possibly can, and at the same time hold ourselves accountable, we are sharing additional information with you today and giving you an update from the incident from yesterday. You heard me mention yesterday that we had a video that we had taken from one of our drones that was in the air. We're going to share with you a portion of that video in deference to the family and to all of our community. Graphic portions of that video will not be shown today. However, we're going to show you as much as we possibly can, keeping in mind that this remains an active criminal investigation by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, but we, again, are being open and transparent with our community. At this point, if you can focus on the television monitors. Pulled a firearm from his waistband and he retreated into the house at this point. Just a few moments pass and then he reappears with a gun in hand, and this is where the deputies then use lethal force, and the subject was shot by deputy sheriff. After hours of attempting to communicate with this individual from about 11:30 in the morning going forward, we were attempting to communicate with this individual. And so at some point he decided to come out. At that point he was shot with a less than lethal round. He immediately then pulled a firearm from his waistband and he retreated into the house at this point. Just a few moments pass and then he reappears with a gun in hand, and this is where the deputies then use lethal force, and the subject was shot by deputy sheriffs. After seeing the video, we now know that the weapon involved was a BB gun. This is what you see Dr. Williamson showing here. That is an actual photograph of the gun itself. You can see it is an exact replica of a Walther handgun. Based on testimony from yesterday from witnessing deputies and others, the deputies excuse me, believed that they were being fired upon at that point. Throughout it all, it is important to note that our deputies continually called out and implored this individual to surrender peacefully. The deceased individual's name is Landon Christopher Wooten. We had not identified him up to this point. Again, the deceased individual's name is Landon Christopher Wooten. His date of birth is December 18, 1999. We acknowledge that Landon really was a troubled youth, and that his death is certainly painful for his family. In conclusion, this is certainly not the outcome that any of us wanted. But we gave Mr. Wooten every opportunity over the course of 4 hours to come out and to surrender peacefully. At this point, this investigation will continue by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement into this incident. Let me just also go over a brief timeline for the scenario from yesterday. At 11:37 hours, detectives made contact with the suspect inside the residence and started announcements for him to exit. At 11:40, the suspect is observed with a handgun pointed at deputies. While communicating with him to exit, he pointed the gun and shut the door at the time. This is where his grandmother and the grandson, the grandson exited from the residence, and deputies began to try to communicate with our deceased subject. At 11:40 hours, the deputies back outside of the house, off from the house. They actually never went into the house. They were communicating through the doorway. They initiated a call for service for backup and secured the perimeter. At 1:09 p.m., the SWAT team was called to respond to a barricaded suspect. At 2:47 p.m., the SWAT team assumed the inner perimeter positions from the patrol deputies. At 3:27 p.m., the suspect exited from the residence initially with his hands up, and then when the less than lethal was used is when he produced the handgun. At 3:28 hours is when the less than lethal round was used, and at 3:28 p.m. is when the SWAT team members fired their handguns. Pursuant to the investigation, we believe that 5 of the SWAT members fired their rounds. We believe that it was less than 24 rounds that were fired that struck the individual. At this point, it's unclear exactly how many rounds struck the individual, but that will be part of the investigation that will be included in succeeding reports. Okay, any questions?
Sheriff, the gun right here, what kind of gun would that have been? You say it's a replica, but that's a BB gun. What type of gun is the gun that's a replica of?
It would have been likely semi-automatic. Could have been a 9mm handgun. It could have been a 40 caliber handgun, but a Walter pistol is what it's a replica of.
Pretty authentic?
Pretty authentic. You can see the picture there itself, and so this all happened in just a matter of seconds with the deputy sheriffs, and this is what they saw.
Why are you releasing this video? Has somebody disputed this, or why did you want to show what your deputy said?
We're releasing the video again with an abundance of transparency. Yesterday I heard that someone was saying that the facts were something different. And so what we're simply doing is being transparent here with this entire incident, knowing that an investigation will continue, but it likely will be months before that investigation is concluded. So we're operating in the here and now, and so I simply wanted to make sure that we provided as much information as we could.
Sheriff, you mentioned yesterday that this suspect fired at least one shot. Is this a change in the narrative, or can you describe
I'm sorry,
how...
I didn't hear the first part of the question.
Yesterday during the press conference, you mentioned that the suspect had fired at least one round.
Right.
Can you elaborate on what it is? Because obviously a BB gun would produce a far different sound than a regular gun.
What I can tell you is that in the minds of the deputy sheriffs, they believe that they were being fired upon, and that was the information that was provided to me yesterday. Today, after processing the crime scene, we know that it was a BB gun that was involved. And so the deputies will be interviewed by FDLE, and the additional information will come out. I'm sharing with you the factual information today.
So when he put his hands up and then someone fired the non-lethal round, is that how it worked?
Yes.
Like, if he put his hands up, why did they even fire at him?
They were giving him instructions, and what you don't see here is he began to try to move back into the house. And at that point, they fired a less than lethal round, trying to give him all the opportunity to comply with their instructions, and they didn't see the gun. You just saw the video where the individual goes in and pulls out a gun and points it directly at the deputy sheriffs. They fired another less than lethal round. He very quickly retreated into the home, which you saw from the video. Just a few seconds later, he came back out with what appeared to be a gun in his hand, coming towards the deputies, and he was shot.
Sheriff, what would this video prove? Why are you releasing this? What is this proving in your eyes?
I'll let you be the judge of that, what the video shows. I'm simply showing you the video. You have to come to your own conclusions at this point, knowing that there will be a full investigation by FDL.
Sheriff, do you believe this was suicidal? I mean, he came out knowing that these officers had these deputies had their guns trained on him.
Obviously, the individual, Mr. Wooten, is deceased now, so I cannot precisely say what his intentions were, other than it appeared that his intentions were to engage the deputies in a gun fight.
With a BB gun.
With a BB gun.
I mean,
We now know it was a BB gun.
I know that, but I'm saying he came out knowing it was a BB gun. And
Right, he did. The deputy, there was no way the deputies would have known that at that time.
Sheriff,
forgive me.
yesterday you said that he had a cell phone. In which picture did he come out with a cell phone in his hand?
Right from the very beginning there. So you saw the video. So I've showed you what I saw yesterday, and that's what happened. So thank you all very much.
Can you say anything about what the warrant, what generated the original warrant, what that crime was, and what the circumstances?
The original warrant was, he had two warrants, one for armed burglary, the other for aggravated assault, where a firearm was used in that process. That information was provided to the deputies who went to arrest him initially. And keep in mind, those the very initial deputies that encountered him, he pointed a gun at them. They retreated from the position where they were, just at the front door of the residence, not knowing again whether or not it was a real gun or not. All they know is he pointed a handgun at them. They secured the perimeter, and that's when the SWAT team was called.
Do you have any insight about these cases, like what happened to lead up to this warrant being out for his arrest in the first place? Like, did he break into a house? Did he rob somebody? Or
you know, those facts, you know, we will get you copies of the arrest warrants. The details are in there. We do know that at one point we recovered a real gun from the incident.
is that provided by the grandmother?
Pardon?
Did the grandmother provide that gun?
No. This is the prior incident to
Okay.
yesterday. The incident that led up to getting the warrants. We know that a real gun was recovered in that incident. So
Sheriff,
Did any of the
you're
rounds penetrate the home?
I can't speak to the details of that. That gets into the specific active criminal investigation, and that will come out later.
Maybe one more question and then we'll end this.
Sheriff, so you're standing by your deputies today?
If you look at the set of facts that I've laid out today, I think that the average person will say that the deputies were put in a position where they were justified in taking the action that they took.
Thank you, Sheriff.